Hey there, dirt bike people. I'm Chuck from TrueTech, and today I'm going to do an experiment that hopefully illustrates the effect that a worn top end has on compression readings. So we'll start off with a bit of a background story. Years ago, I was doing a top end on a YZ250. I did a compression test on it before I took it apart. The compression test showed a little bit over 200 PSI, totally normal for a stock YZ250. But when I took the engine apart, the piston was split front to back. I could literally hold it up to the light and see through it. That was a long time ago, and many times since then, I've had similar experiences that really have caused me to question the validity of doing a compression test in order to diagnose the condition of a top end. Today, I happen to have a TPI on the bench here and a few different cylinders from engines that I'm working on. Each cylinder has a bit of a different situation going on, so we're gonna do some testing and see what kind of results we get. So the bike that I have on the bench right now was in good running condition until it sucked in a bunch of dirty water. It was turned over a whole bunch of times, and now it won't run. So we know that our stock compression on a TPI is about 150, so we're gonna check this one and see what kind of compression reading we get. So after checking that and getting 150 PSI reading, I'll show you guys what this cylinder looks like. It's not terrible, but you can see a bunch of vertical lines. And at the top, there is a bit of wear there. I can just feel it with my finger. So like I say, it's not catastrophic, but it's enough that this thing will not run. And we're still at 150 PSI. So let's check ring end gap on this thing. And that'll give us a good idea how much the sand damaged the piston and the cylinder. 25 thou. It's way too big, and we still got lots of compression. Let's go to another scenario. This next cylinder it has about 145 hours on it. The piston clearance is at 5 thou. Stock piston clearance is about 2.5 thou. So this one's got significant wear. It's due for replacement. The ring end gap is 17 thou. So let's check compression on a worn, but not a failed top end. Yep. 155, just shy of 160. Okay, last test. I'm gonna take this piston and I'm gonna drill a hole right through it, and we're gonna see how drastically that affects the compression ratio or the reading, if at all. Here we go, piston with the hole in it. 130 PSI. Let's do it again. What do you think of that? 130 PSI and the piston has a hole in it. So we can definitely see that having a hole in your piston does make a difference. But 130 PSI, an engine's still gonna run. TPIs are more sensitive to compression and ring wear than other bikes. But a carbureted engine at 130 PSI, it'll run just fine. You probably won't even notice that there's a difference. If you're very familiar with your bike, you might notice that there's a loss in power. Now, granted, this isn't a huge hole. You can see me right through the hole. If you had a hole that size in your piston, or if there was that much damage to your piston, you would hope that you'd be able to diagnose that with the compression reading. This is something that I've been thinking and saying for a long time, and I think it's something that the industry needs to kind of get their head around. There are so many variables that play into a compression reading: elevation, oil, carbon buildup. So instead of using a compression reading, what should we do to diagnose how much wear is in our top end? There are a few things that I do. Number one is every top end that I take apart, I measure the piston clearance and I check the ring end gap. That gives me a real world idea of how worn that piston is. Some riders should be changing their piston every 50 hours. Some riders, they don't put any wear on their pistons in 200 hours. Big potential gap in what maintenance intervals should be followed depending on the rider and the conditions. If you ride regularly and do your maintenance regularly and have those numbers handy, you're gonna know how long you can go on a top end safely. If for some reason you don't have those types of records, which obviously most people don't, there are a few things that you can do. Number one, simply pull the pipe off the bike if it's a two-stroke and look in the cylinder. You can see how much wear is on the piston and on the cylinder wall. On the cylinder wall, you're looking for a nice 30-degree crosshatch, and that'll show you how much wear is in there. The other thing that I do with every bike that comes onto the bench for any type of engine-related issue is I check the left side crank bearing. Pull the stator cover off, grab the flywheel, and look for any up and down play. If there's any up and down play, you know you gotta tear the bottom end apart. You can also pull the flywheel off and have a look at the seal and see if it's been drooling at all. If there's any drool around that seal, it's a sign that fuel has been coming out, and if fuel's been coming out, air has also been going in. And if there's drool, you'll clearly see it looks like like a teardrop coming down directly off the bottom of the crank seal. So like I say, this is a test that I've been thinking about doing for quite a while. I just happen to have 3 cylinders on the bench that all illustrate different situations, and I think the results are pretty cool.